So accredited investor status, right? Big thing when it comes to STOs, because as a Reg D offering, as overwhelmingly STOs are, you're limited to marketing unless you're most likely going to do a 506c. So arguably, you are going to market to nothing but accredited investors. And the definition of accredited investor hasn't changed in some time, right? And generally speaking, amongst other elements of it, for an individual, it's a net worth of $1 million exclusive of that person's primary residence, or net income for the prior 2 years equal to $200,000 or more. And there's been some attempts to change that. And I think, a lot of people, when they come to me looking at offerings and saying, well, I want to do it offshore because under a Reg S, you don't have the accredited investor restriction, right? The only restriction in a Reg S, which is an offering to non-US residents, is that you don't lie, right? You don't defraud them, which kind of goes without saying, but that's the only restriction of Reg S. You can sell it to anybody. But I tell people, and my belief is that since the definition of an accredited investor hasn't really been updated in some time, that there's more and more accredited investors. To think about what it takes to live in, say, New York City or Los Angeles alone, even in, middle class, you're most likely an accredited investor, right? Just by virtue of the cost of living. And that can be said for a few different cities across the country. And, alongside that, you have a huge baby boomer population, right, who have significant resources from retirements and on the same. And those add up and become, and bring or grandfather many of them into the accredited investor realm, right? And there was a recent change by the SEC to include individuals with Series 7 or 65s as accredited investors. So basically your financial advisors, right? Those are the two primary licenses that you get. And now if you have those licenses, you are a de facto accredited investor, irrespective of your financial condition. But the reality is most investment bankers are already accredited investors, right? Just by virtue of the salaries that they earn and the wealth that they earn. And moreover, you're really selling to the salesman, right? In the sense that you're now marketing, your Series 7 guy would be the guy selling your STO, but now all of a sudden he's somebody you're going to sell to. And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But the reality is it's an attempt. It's an attempt to expand the definition, right? And I think that's the right thing to do. And I think that's like the right way to go. And I think leaving the numbers, right, the monetary limits of 1 million and 200,000 is also the right thing to do, leaving them as they are. But to expand the definition of accredited investor, I think is definitely a worthwhile endeavor. Now, like this recent change, will it have any market impact? I don't believe so. I just don't think you touch enough new people that would have that have the licenses and aren't already accredited investors. So it's an interesting thing when you're going into an STO, because especially of the way STOs are marketed, right? Like you're going to do a 506c and you're going to market and broadly solicit, and in the corners of the internet where crypto is huge and, message boards or whatever, and you find these elements to it, Telegram, right, where it's social media, where this is really where you make a great deal of your sales, as opposed to traditional equity where it's, guys with phones and all this crazy stuff that, seemingly people don't use anymore. It's a necessary evil, but it's very difficult to, identify who's accredited and who's not. But I think, the way that the economy is going or has been going prior to COVID, you saw a great number of people become accredited investors. So I don't think it's the limitation that it used to be, right, in terms of who you can solicit. And now with broad solicitation rules, you can solicit them in any manner that you really effectively want. So, STOs, I still think they're a valuable, and there's a whole host of things I could go on about STOs, but just the fact that you're limited to accredited investors in the US isn't a reason to eschew doing an STO. It's not worth it at all. Reg S is great. It's phenomenal, right? Like, you can sell to anybody irrespective of ownership, but 50% of the world's crypto wealth is still trapped in the United States, and it's a big market to ignore, right? It's a very, very, very big market to ignore, especially when you can't access China, right? So you take China out of the equation, take the United States out of the equation, what do you really have, right? You've X'd out great portion of the wealth of the majority of the wealth of the world, right? So, especially in the crypto context. So my encouragement to people doing STOs is to stick with it. Definitely, you can definitely attract accredited investors. It's not that small of a pool as you think. The laws are changing and slowly starting to move into a broader definition of it, and I think you'll see that benefits STOs in the long run as you get more people who are adept or willing to kind of dabble with crypto. As they, become more familiar with it, right? So if you have questions about accredited investors, how to vet them, how to identify them, how to solicit, any of those, definitely hit me up, Adam at AdamTracy, TRACY.io, and I'll talk to you soon.